In a world of luxury and crystal glass, the wounds of the past still cannot be hidden by expensive suits and watches for cars. A black man with a strong body and a calm face stepped into the cabin of a super luxury business jet where the seats reclined into beds, the wine was served in crystal glasses, and the service was like a 7-star hotel in the air. That day, he was not just a passenger. He was a young CEO who had just closed a multi-billion-dollar global contract. But none of that seemed to matter when a beautiful flight attendant, well-groomed but arrogant, approached him with a sneer. Without asking, without checking his ticket, she said firmly but dismissively, "Sorry, this seat is not for you. Please move to the back." Before we continue, tell us, where are you watching from? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and share this story with your friends or family. Let's spread something positive around us by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this story. You're helping more people than you know. Thank you. Now, let's continue with the story. Ing still hurt. He stepped into the private jet like a man who had it all. His suit was tailored perfectly. His shoes were polished to shine. And his face, calm, proud, and unreadable, looked like it had seen both failure and victory. The plane itself was a flying palace. Gold-trimmed seats that turned into beds, touchscreen menus, and a personal assistant for each guest. It was luxury in the sky. But inside his chest, something still hurt. As the soft jazz music played through the cabin, he walked slowly down the aisle. People were sipping champagne, some reading, others typing on laptops made of titanium. Everyone here was someone important. And he had worked his whole life to become someone important too. But behind his calm look, memories screamed. He grew up in a neighborhood where broken glass covered the streets, where police sirens were the lullabies of the night. Where being black was not just a skin color, but a reason people looked at him with fear, or worse, with pity. His mother cleaned hotel rooms. She came home each night with cracked hands and tired feet. She used to whisper to him, "Keep going, baby. One day they'll see you." He believed her. He studied hard. He sold snacks at school. He skipped parties. He built a tech company in his garage. And then one day, after 10 years of no sleep and no peace, the world finally clapped for him. But not everyone. As he reached his seat in the first row, one of the flight attendants, a woman with perfect makeup and cold eyes, stepped in front of him. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble-like floor of the jet. She looked at him from head to toe, then smiled politely, but with something hidden in her eyes. In that moment, something old and painful rose inside his chest. He had seen that look before, not in words, not in shouts, but in silence. In the way people held their bags tighter near him. In the way store owners followed him quietly down each aisle. In the way hotel staff checked his ID twice. He stood there, frozen. His boarding pass was in his hand, clearly marked with the seat number. But even here, even after all he had done, the world still whispered the same thing it did when he was a child. "You don't belong here." He lowered his eyes, hiding the storm that brewed inside. He didn't want a scene. He didn't want to shout or explain himself. He just wanted to breathe. So he turned away, walked back to a seat further down, and sat quietly. His heart beat hard against his chest, but his face stayed calm. Everyone went back to their drinks. The jazz kept playing. The clouds outside moved like nothing had happened. But something had. Something deep. And just 17 minutes later, the skies above would no longer be quiet. He sat still. The leather seat beneath him was soft and expensive, but it felt like cold stone. Around him, the air was filled with quiet elegance. Glasses clinked softly. The engine hummed like a lullaby. But inside his chest, there was a storm. He looked out the window. White clouds stretched across the sky like giant pillows. A view most people dreamed of. But he didn't feel lucky. Not today. Not after being pushed away again, not because of who he was, but because of what he looked like. 17 minutes. That's how long he sat there. Silent. Still. But not okay. His mind went back to all the times he had swallowed his pain just to survive. All the days he kept working while being told he wasn't good enough. All the nights he cried when no one could see. This moment felt like the past had returned to slap him in the face. He could hear the pramagari at the front laughing with a guest. Her voice was cheerful. Her job was secure. She didn't know what she had done. Or maybe she did. Maybe she didn't care. That made it worse. But the universe has its own way of revealing truth. At that exact moment, in a quiet office in New York, a message was sent. It was an automated flight update. A log, a report. It included the full passenger list of the flight, now mid-air. One name on that list caught the attention of a high-level airline executive. And not just any name. It was his name. The executive's eyes widened. He knew who this man was. Not just another customer. Not just another rich traveler. He was one of the largest shareholders of the airline itself. He had helped save the company during the pandemic. He had invested millions into making this very plain a reality. He was not a guest. He was the reason the airline even existed today. Back in the air, the captain received a message on his secure tablet. It was short, precise. VIP on board, full protocol. Immediate apology required. The captain stood up. He adjusted his jacket. And with quiet steps, he walked out of the cockpit and headed down the aisle toward the man everyone had ignored. Passengers noticed that the mood changed. The air felt heavier, but the man still stared out the window, unaware that the next few minutes would not just return his seat, but also return his voice, his power, and something more, his dignity. The sound of footsteps moved slowly through the aisle. Polished leather shoes stepped gently across the smooth carpet of the luxury cabin. It wasn't a flight attendant. It wasn't a passenger. It was the captain himself. He wore a sharp navy blue uniform with gold stripes on the sleeves. His face looked serious, but respectful. He didn't stop to chat or smile. His eyes were focused on one man, the man sitting alone by the window in row 7A. Heads turned, whispers began. People leaned closer to see who the captain was walking toward. Man in row 7A didn't notice at first. His mind was still lost in the clouds. But then he felt it, the silence, the shift in the air, and the presence of someone standing right beside him. He turned and saw the captain looking directly into his eyes. The captain didn't speak loudly. He didn't smile. He bowed his head gently, a rare show of respect in a world that often forgot how to give it. Then, with calm and firm words, he spoke. Not everyone heard what was said, but everyone could feel the change. The cabin grew still. The pramagari at the front, the same one who had dismissed him earlier, stood frozen. Her confident face slowly began to crack. She saw the captain speak, and she knew this wasn't just another rich passenger. This man had power, real power, the kind that couldn't be measured by money alone. Passengers began whispering to each other. Some looked shocked, some embarrassed. A few looked away in guilt, realizing they had judged him too. The man stood up slowly, not with anger, with pride, but with dignity. He followed the captain back down the aisle. Each step was quiet, but it echoed in the hearts of those who watched. The man passed the same seats, the same people, the same place he had been told he didn't belong. Now, he was being led back, not because he demanded it, but because truth had a way of rising, just like he did. When he reached his original seat, the captain motioned to the pramagari to step forward. She did, but her hands were shaking. Her smile was gone. Her voice soft. She began to apologize, but before she could finish, the captain raised his hand. There would be time for that later. For now, the man sat down again, this time in the seat That had always been his dot, and for the first time in a long time, he finally felt seen. The sound of footsteps moved slowly through the aisle. Polished leather shoes stepped gently across the smooth carpet of the luxury cabin. It wasn't a flight attendant. It wasn't a passenger. It was the captain himself. He wore a sharp navy blue uniform with gold stripes on the sleeves. His face looked serious, but respectful. He didn't stop to chat or smile. His eyes were focused on one man, the man sitting alone by the window in row 7A. Heads turned, whispers began. People leaned closer to see who the captain was walking toward. Man in row 7A didn't notice at first. His mind was still lost in the clouds. But then he felt it, the silence, the shift in the air, and the presence of someone standing right beside him. He turned and saw the captain looking directly into his eyes. The captain didn't speak loudly. He didn't smile. He bowed his head gently, a rare show of respect in a world that often forgot how to give it. Then, with calm and firm words, he spoke. Not everyone heard what was said, but everyone could feel the change. The cabin grew still. The pramugari at the front, the same one who had dismissed him earlier, stood frozen. Her confident face slowly began to crack. She saw the captain speak, and she knew this wasn't just another rich passenger. This man had power, real power, the kind that couldn't be measured by money alone. Passengers began whispering to each other. Some looked shocked, some embarrassed. A few looked away in guilt, realizing they had judged him too. The man stood up slowly, not with anger, with pride, but with dignity. He followed the captain back down the aisle. Each step was quiet, but it echoed in the hearts of those who watched. The man passed the same seats, the same people, the same place he had been told he didn't belong. Now, he was being led back, not because he demanded it, but because truth had a way of rising, just like he did. When he reached his original seat, the captain motioned to the pramugari to step forward. She did, but her hands were shaking. Her smile was gone. Her voice soft. She began to apologize, but before she could finish, the captain raised his hand. There would be time for that later. For now, the man sat down again, this time in the seat that had always been his. And for the first time in a long time, he finally felt seen. The rest of the flight moved slowly, not because the plane was late, but because time felt different now. The air inside the cabin had changed. It was heavier, but also clearer. Like everyone had just witnessed something too important to forget. No one spoke to him. Not yet. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what to say. What do you say to a man who was judged in front of you, then revealed to be the very person holding the future of the airline in his hands? The man leaned back in his seat. He didn't check his phone. He didn't ask for food. He just stared forward, thinking. Not about revenge. Not about the woman who was removed, but about his mother. Her hands, her words. The way she used to cry in the kitchen when the bills piled up. The way she would wipe her tears and pretend everything was fine, just so he could sleep peacefully. He whispered in his mind, "Mama, I made it." But even making it didn't erase the sting of today. Because success can buy comfort, but not always dignity. He thought of all the young men who looked like him, those still trying, still climbing, still being pushed down by people who saw only what they wanted to see. He knew this flight wasn't just a personal moment. It was a message. A quiet, powerful reminder that identity goes deeper than appearances. That the color of your skin should never decide the weight of your worth. He didn't need to stand up and make a speech. He didn't need cameras or applause. His silence spoke louder than anything. Because sometimes real power doesn't scream. It breathes. It waits. It forgives, but never forgets. And as the plane glided through the clouds, high above a world still learning how to see clearly, he closed his eyes again, not to sleep, but to dream. This time without limits. The seatbelt light turned on. The captain's voice came over the speaker. Calm and professional. We'll begin our descent shortly. Please prepare for landing. Passengers adjusted their chairs, folded their tables, looked out the windows at the fading clouds. But for one man, this landing wasn't just about arriving in another city. It was about something deeper. For him, this moment was the end of a silent battle. He had come onto this flight like any other leader, focused, quiet, prepared. But he would leave it having faced something no business deal could prepare him for. A reminder that no amount of success could fully protect him from judgment. Still, he had faced it with dignity. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't demanded. He had trusted the truth to speak for him, and it did. As the wheels lowered and the city lights began to shine below, the man looked across the aisle. A few passengers gave him small nods, silent acknowledgments. Not of his wealth, not of his title, but of his strength. He nodded back, gently. He didn't need their praise. What he needed, he had already earned. Self-respect. He thought again of his younger self, the boy with worn-out shoes. The boy who had been told no 1,000 times. The boy who wanted to belong in a world that didn't know how to welcome him. That boy had finally found his place, not because someone gave it to him, but because he claimed it without hate. The plane touched down. Softly, gracefully, like a quiet promise kept. The man remained seated as others stood up to collect their bags. He watched them, calm, at peace. Then he stood, picked up his briefcase, and walked toward the exit. Not faster, not slower, just steady. Each step on that carpeted floor was a step forward for more than just him. It was for every voice that had been ignored, every face that had been doubted, every heart that had been hurt, but still kept going. The doors opened. The wind of the city met his face, and he walked out, not as a victim, not even as a hero, but as a man who had nothing left to prove. The airport was busy. People rushed past with phones in hand and luggage rolling behind them, faces full of purpose, voices echoing through high glass ceilings. But in the middle of it all, he walked quietly. No security team, no assistant, just him and peace. Outside the terminal, a black car waited. The driver opened the door, but the man paused for a moment. He turned his head and looked back at the plane behind him, sleek, powerful, just like the image he had built for years. But today, it wasn't the aircraft that made him feel strong. It was what happened inside it. He thought of the pramagari, the mistake she made, and the lesson she learned. He didn't hate her. In fact, a small part of him hoped she would grow from it, that she would remember the look on his face. Not angry, not proud, just tired of pretending. He had always believed in grace. Even when grace wasn't given to him, he sat in the car. The door closed softly. The city lights passed by the window, glowing like stars. In his mind, he replayed the moment he took his seat back, not because of a title, not because of wealth, but because he had earned it long before anyone knew his name. He smiled, not the smile of victory, but the smile of release. He thought of his mother again, of the nights she went without food so he could eat, of the way she prayed for him every day. She didn't get to see this part of his journey, but maybe, just maybe, she saw it from above. He whispered to the silence around him, I forgive them. I forgive the world. Because real strength is not shown in revenge. It's shown in how you rise, without needing to push others down. The city moved on, but something had changed up there. In the skies, a message was written. Without force. Without shouting. Just with truth. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One man. One moment. One seat. To remind us all that dignity is not given. It is lived. And he had just lived at 30,000 feet above the clouds.